And we're starting. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Smells Like Hope podcast, the podcast that says to drug and alcohol addiction.
Oh yeah, like
Got
that.
my boy Howard back, and before we get into it, we're going to pay a couple of bills, so roll them.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
And we're back, baby! So today we're going to go over, we're going to at least start with, this show, it gets organic and goes off in all kinds of directions, but we're going to at least start with a pretty sensitive topic to me, which myself and Howard both have not had the misfortune of experiencing, but have some knowledge in the subject, and that's the topic of relapse. I belong to a lot of recovery Facebook groups, and it's every day. You read somebody who's posting their story about their relapse, and that's not bad. That's a good thing if it happens. You got to get it out there. You got to talk about it. But the problem is how they choose to talk about it and how bad they beat the shit out of themselves over it. And that's not really the way to go. I remember Jake the Snake once told me the thing with addiction for most people is it's not really a question of if you're going to relapse. That's kind of a part of the process most people do. It's how do you handle it when it happens.
Yeah.
So today we're going to share some experiences with friends, and we're going to put out some of the warning signs to look out for, so you could see it in friends, you could see it yourself, and maybe you could avoid it altogether. But if you don't avoid it, if something happens, well then what the fuck do you do? Do you go into a corner and beat the shit out of yourself? No. Because there's plenty of people who are dying to beat the shit out of you already, man. Those people are toxic. Don't be toxic to yourself.
Yeah.
But what's up, man?
Hey, Rob.
Good to have you back.
Thank you for having me back on, man. Last time was really a good time and really great conversation, and I loved how organic it all was, So thank you so much for the opportunity to come back on again. And hello to out there, whoever's watching.
And what's funny about me is I use the excuse of I like it all to go organic and flow here on Wrestle Shoot, but I just don't like to prep.
Yeah. I mean, you just shoot from the hip and whatever comes, But yeah, to get back on, to kind of piggyback what you were talking about, it's true, right? We are of no service if we just continue to kind of beat ourselves up, after it happens. I mean, I understand why we do that. I think we're the biggest contributors to our own, self-hate and all that, a lot of us come in feeling like big pieces of shit right here. I came in with those feelings. But ultimately, like you said, that doesn't serve anything. You know what I mean? Yes, we're going to have feelings, and they're going to be tough to kind of, sit with. But what I think you touched upon is how we respond to that, right? Because there's a strength that's going to come from it gradually, and we could also start. And once you get past it, right, we now have a cautionary tale we could share, where, like you said, right, we could figure out where it happened, what went wrong, where, so yeah, that self-beating, I mean, come on, I did that for 20 years,
that's the thing, is we take what others in our lives say so hard, but I would say it's no worse than what you said or done to yourself. So you survived you could survive them.
Yeah. Well, it's let's look at it, right? Why do we do that? Why is that our default setting as addicts? And it always comes down to the ego, right? We're concerned with. I mean, I could speak for myself again, and everything that comes out of my mouth is really just my experience.
Right.
It's not by all word or anything, but right. We have this. There was a saying I heard once. I'm not the most. What is it? I'm not the most important person in the world, but I'm all I think about.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I think it just hits it on the head with addicts, right? Our egos are so self-consumed about us,
Yeah.
and I think when relapse happens, that turns on tenfold, you know. And it's what we've known for so. I mean, it's what I've known for so long, right? That you know, I'm a piece of shit. I'm worth nothing. So I understand it, but how do you get past it?
I actually sent somebody a private message. This guy who was just like, I was afraid this guy might go like put a bullet in his mouth. He was really bad, and
Yeah.
everybody just they mean well when they reply to these things, but if you don't have something constructive to say, you maybe just want to stay out of it. I think instead of just like, oh, you'll get through this. Well, the reason he's on here pleading for help is he doesn't believe he'll get through this.
Yeah,
So I sent him a message, and I just wrote, and I know it sounds corny, but he didn't get it. I wrote, "Why do we fall down?"
Hmm.
And he wrote back, "Why?" So we can learn to get back up. Haven't you seen Batman? And he goes, "Holy shit, you're right. That's it. Why do we fall down?" Everybody, little kids learning to walk, fall down. Well, we're all learning to walk again.
yeah,
And it's good that people are taking to these groups and telling, vigorous honesty about what happened or why or how long they've been relapsed for. That's good. It's cautionary, like you said, to other people reading it, but they're reaching out rather than just surrendering right back into the nightmare.
yeah. Yeah, it's to get back to what you said. Why do we fall down? I mean, it's. I think you said this before. How do we respond to any situation is really going to be the test of our character
Right.
in life. And it's and it's interesting too. Right? I think the most successful people in this world, depending on how you measure success, right? Statistically, personally, whatever, have had more failures in life than they've had successes. But it's what you talked about. It's how they responded to that situation, and hoping that here's the thing. I wanted to say I'm hoping that you have enough program in you to know the things that you have to do. But sometimes what happens when you don't, and you just have those blinders on.
Well, I think that's their initial reaction to any relapse is just see no evil, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Like I used to call my cocaine addiction the white igloo.
Yeah.
I couldn't see past those white bricks that were everywhere.
Yeah.
All that mattered is how much of these bricks can I scrape off and put up my nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't see the cart before the horse or the forest through the trees, or insert your own cliche here.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it sometimes is like you said, you didn't want to put in any kind of corny response. Sometimes just saying, "Hey, I'm here to listen."
Right.
I think sometimes that's I don't know about you, I get scared when someone looks at me as like that's what I'm looking for. When someone looks at me for any kind as some kind of a grand source of like wisdom or experience, that's still a scary thing for me. But I think part of it is also owning your own journey and what you've done as well. So but sometimes just listening.
And it's amazing what little things can really set you off. Like, I watch movies religiously, love movies. Half the movies out there, they've got scenes where people are doing lines of coke, but that always makes me laugh because it's always like, ground up in isotal. So it's just a big poof of powder. They do their line, they really actually sniff it, and you can see the dust come out of their mouth from the vitamin that they're sniffing.
Yeah.
But the other day, this movie, I can't remember what the movie was, so I turned it off so quick, but this movie, they were doing coke, and I swear they were doing real coke.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crystally, it was shiny. They're taking credit cards and crunching it up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, daddy. I'm starting to taste it under my tongue. Like, I got to get the fuck out of here, man.
Wow.
So I turned it off, and that was on my mind the rest of the night. Next morning, I woke up, I started calling people like, hey, talk me off the ledge, man. 'Cause I know I don't want to do it, but I know there's a chance that I will. So
Yeah. Well, you know, something I was thinking along on my train right here, it's that phrase, right? That what is it? Subtle, cunning, and baffling. This motherfucking disease is subtle, cunning, and baffling. I remember once I was just at home, just relaxing. I was watching the show Bosch. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a detective show.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, I maybe had 3.5 years or something. And you know, he always has these moments where he goes out to his little balcony and he's in reflective thought. But then he has a nice little glass of whiskey.
Right.
And it's really calm scene, and you hear the jazz music. And you just take a little sips. That for me is dangerous.
Right.
Because when I see that in movies, any kind of alcohol consumption, and it's associated with something crazy and wild, you know, like that proverbial party scene or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I've been there, done that. That's just, yeah, don't want to do that again. But when it's that someone who seems relatively normal, you know, is able to have a nice little glass of scotch,
right.
You know, like the allure of that, the how enticing that's all captured. That for me is sometimes like, ugh, you know, like, yeah, why can't I just have like just a little bit of a whiskey in a glass and, you know, call it a night? Because I never did. Just have one.
And the problem with that is a scene like that does sound like heaven. Sitting on a nice balcony at night, maybe hearing some live music from a bar downstairs, sipping on a drink. And to me, I'm like, God, that sounds wonderful. And that's how I know that I could very easily become an alcoholic.
Yeah. And
that little monkey on your back going, it's okay, we're not alcoholics, let's just go get 3 bottles. Yeah, 3 bottles will last me a long time. And by the morning, I'm like, I'm tripping on all these bottles.
Yeah, like for a second, if I insert myself in that scene, right, and then you caption it 3 hours later, it's, you know, 4 or 5 bottles of that whiskey, me on the floor or something, and passed out. Standing
up on the balcony on the banister, butt naked, going, I love this town! Woo!
Yeah. So those have been the moments for me. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about too, and it happened this summer. So, you know, I think like pretty much all of this whole country, really the world, I'm sorry, going through this global pandemic, and you know, and I'm sure everyone was going through their own personal, you know, craziness and journey through the thing. And at some point, you know, I was living with my partner, and I just started feeling really funky and really just, I did not want to be near her, and I wanted to isolate, if anything. And then pretty much, you know, ultimately, you know, I guess through my therapist, and that's another thing. I'm a big advocate of outside help, therapy, if it helps you. But, you know, more or less, we were able to kind of, you know, pinpoint it to, you know, a lot of the trauma for me, a lot of the pandemic for me was very similar to, you know, this trauma I went through as a kid. And I'm sure that I wouldn't be surprised if this happened across the board. But it started bringing up the same feelings, you know, the same feelings I had as a 10, 9-year-old, whatever. You know, I just grew up with a very volatile household. My dad was alcoholic and all that, you know, good stuff that comes with it. And I remember at some point we were having a discussion, and I remember I'm talking to my therapist about it. I'm fucking journaling about this shit, and me and my partner would get into the argument. And I think at some point I just remember her becoming dismissive of my feelings. She's saying, you know, she just completely becomes dismissive of it. I just blew up. And I walked out of there, and I remember thinking, I don't want to think, I don't want to feel, I don't want to talk to anyone. And for me, those three things are always what motivated me to drink.
Sure.
Not wanting to feel, not wanting to think, and just wanting, and I had not felt that in a really long time. And so that day was scary for me because I was like, that feeling is the feeling I would feel right before I picked up,
right. Pre-relapse.
Yeah, that for me, and I pinpointed, I was like, holy shit, this scared me. And again, thank God, I had enough sober reflex, I guess, to, pick up a phone or just hit a meeting,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so those feelings to me, when I start having them, I don't want to think, I don't want to feel. I have to be kind of very aware of those feelings.
Sure. Eyes wide open on that one.
Yeah.
I remember it was probably about a year, maybe a little more ago, that I was on the phone with Jake Roberts. And we're talking about, hey, I can't really do the Jake voice, but he's got that gravelly.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing with your recovery, kid? And I'm like, oh, I got this. He goes, what'd you say? I think my phone broke out. It sounds like you just told me, oh, I got this.
Oh, man.
And I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. He's like, yeah, you're being a real C word. And I said, is that right? He goes, yeah, complacent.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm bringing it somewhere else, too.
Yeah, that like hit me like a fist. After he took me the wrong direction, Jake Roberts psychology that brought me back.
Yeah.
Once he said complacent, they all started spinning in my head like, holy shit. Yeah. He's like, I want you to go to a meeting tonight, and I want you to tell everybody the story of this conversation we just had, C word and all. I was like, okay. He goes, it'll be funny. So I went and told the story, and all these women, when I said Jake told me I'm starting to turn into the C word, they all went, oh, God. I said, yeah, that's what I said till he told me the C word is complacent. All of them went, oh. Whoops. Sorry about that.
Let me clarify. Yeah.
But that's when he really started telling me, he's like, this fucking relapse thing ain't no joke, brother. Yeah. When it happens,
let me ask you a question. What does complacency mean for you?
It just means when you stop going to meetings, you in your head, I've got this all under control. I don't need no help from nobody. I'm the master of my own destiny. And the fact of the matter is, in that sense, I will never be the master of my own destiny again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's totally.
But the thing is, the complacency is the first step to a bad relapse.
Yeah.
And you think if you've got 10 people who are admitting that they had a relapse and they're hating themselves over it, how many people have also relapsed and won't talk about it, won't bring it to the table, will stop going to the meetings altogether because they're just defeated?
Well, right? I mean, to also think about when you say complacency, right? You're not, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because that also means you're not doing the things that, brought you to the dance, so to speak, right? You're not calling your sponsor, you're not, going to meetings, you're not, maybe, you're fortunate working with others. For me, that definitely means that. I mean, it's all those things. I mean, because that keeps you on that beam, as you say, right?
Right.
Like, and ultimately, I think it's also, right? Because what happens when you're talking to other people? What happens when you're talking to your sponsor, right? There's that A word, right? Your accountability.
Right.
And which
is hard,
dude. I mean, accountability. Come on, I mean, it's always an ongoing challenge. Being accountable to yourself.
It's like, what do they call that? Get to step 7 and then repeat.
Yeah. Because also with all that comes, that phrase, you're only as sick as your secrets. So in those conversations I'm having with my sponsor or with my sponsee or whatever, that's where you're letting those little things out. Those little things that I know when I go to bed at night, I'll think about it. And I'm like, oh, no, stay right there. Or no, stay right there.
Yeah.
Those little, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That, you called that person maybe a name and that didn't feel good, you lied by omission about this, and it might seem small, but for me, when those things accumulate, that's when I'm in danger.
But even the small things snowball. You get something small in your head you just can't quite get rid of. It's this big to start, the next day it's that big, and it's this big, and and I understand the want. Like you understand the want is still there in the back of your head to just submit to the addiction and just not feel anything for a day, a week, a year.
Yeah. I heard something in another meeting the other day. Someone was just like, I just want to, I'm not thinking. I don't want to self-reflect anymore. I'm fucking sick of it. But it's like you got to find a balance. You got to find a balance between being able to, I think, enjoy whatever you enjoy in life, and allow yourself to have fun, but still be adamant and about the fact that every day for the rest of your life that you wake up, you're going to be an addict, and we have to look at that and we have to manage and treat that in some form.
And you have to make the decision every day that you're going to stay in recovery. Sometimes every hour, you got to keep making that conscious decision.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about last time, people don't start drinking heavy and doing a lot of drugs because they're not fun. Of course it's fun. That's how people get addicted. But problem is, for some of us, it's entirely too much fun. And for some of us, it's not fun at all. It just feels like it's going to be fun, but then it's so just crippling. Once you give in, you don't know how to climb out, and that goes right back to the why do we fall down?
Yeah.
I guess you get that tattooed across my chest. Why do we fall down?
Yeah, with a little Batman logo, right?
That's right.
Yeah. We'll put him on the floor, though.
Oh, shit.
You just said something that was really interesting. Where I'm just thinking about it. I don't know what it was. I think I just had a brain fart. But it's interesting. I'll share this. Maybe it's relevant to what we're talking about. But I remember I always associated growth with blood, sweat, and tears, immediate pain. That's what I always associated growth. And I remember once I had like a session with my therapist. She said, she's like, and this is not at all to toot my own horn, but she just said, you're doing the work. And I was like, it doesn't feel like it, and she's like, well, you're showing up, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and be transparent, and you're looking at the hard stuff,
Boy, and how hard is that at first? Vulnerable. Man, that was rough.
Oh, God. Well, bro, that's one of the things I'm really passionate about. Not vulnerability, but, again, I'm going to throw this at you and kind of see what you think. I think as men, I can speak for myself. I grew up in a very, my dad was very that atypical Latin machismo, this is what masculinity is, yada, yada. And that became really stifling. And from 10 on, we separated. So I kind of had a blank canvas when it came to figuring out what masculinity was for myself.
Sure.
But I think what happens along the way is that proverbial, the whole, boys don't cry thing. It's, there's still remnants of that, in our society. And look, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean as a man, don't tap into that assertive energy. That's an amazing thing. But what I think where we get in trouble is we don't develop what I call a language of vulnerability. What I mean by that is, you ever ask one of your buddies how you feeling, and he's like, or I'm angry, but
fine. That's like, fine.
Yeah, right. It was grunts. It's like we're still cavemen, and I've been guilty of it too. But emotions are a little more subtle than that. They're a little more nuanced, and we don't develop language or the courage to just look at another, buddy of yours and say, I'm fucking dying, and I don't know what the fuck to do, you know. So that's one of the things I've become really, I think and talk a lot about, as men. How do we, develop that capacity,
Right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, like our fathers were like the last of the real man generation,
Sure,
but
John Wayne.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing that that generation is pretty much just falling off because
Yeah.
back in the 50s, guys would beat their wives to death and do a weekend in jail and be okay because they never let anything out until they just
Yeah.
or it was neck deep in a bottle of gin
Sure.
all the time.
Yeah. And again, don't get me wrong. That generation, I mean, their work ethic, whoo,
Right.
the things they accomplish, that masculine, I think,
Right.
that energy went to like, something constructive and like work or providing for your family. Amazing, but at the, when that all occurs at the expense of you not being able to, tell a human being, another person, hey, there's something hurting within me. And
Right.
because again, that's associated with weakness, right? And I'm not, look, and I don't want to generalize, and I don't want to say this is the case for everyone, but in my own experience and a lot of the guys and friends I've dealt with, this is something that's very prevalent. So I more or less, I say all that to say, in this addiction, when we're not able to talk about what's really going on and be honest about what's really going on, I hate my life. Or I'm having, nightmares of what happened to me at 10. I want to just strangle my fucking boss, because whatever the case is.
Who doesn't?
When we're not able to share that stuff, I think that's the stuff that starts, building and accumulating,
Right.
to lead to a relapse.
But again, the very beginning stage of people really need to be aware of is the C word. That complacency is a motherfucker, man.
Yeah.
That will drag you down and hold you back down. Because even I've seen people who have relapsed who simply won't admit it because they still believe they got it under control.
Yeah.
When they're clearly high right now, and you're telling me, "Oh no, I'm fine. I got it under control." You ain't got shit under control, and that's the biggest thing you have to admit is I can't control this.
Yeah. Well,
I just can't.
Right? It comes down to that powerlessness and that surrender. And brother, I don't know about you, but we do not live in a society where we like to admit we're powerless or surrender.
I think that was one of the better days of my life when I really had my aha moment of clarity and just said, I can't do anything about this. I was like, oh my God, that feels so much better.
Yeah, and that's kind of the irony, ain't it?
Yeah.
Like once we do admit to that, it is it's almost like we're there's a weight taken off our shoulders. When we finally say I can't do this, and I'm powerless, and because I think that also starts the journey of well, if you can't do it, what can?
Right. Well. Yeah, maybe. I mean, God damn it. I just had a train of thought and I lost it. Too much Coke back in the day still makes me misfire, I think. I got it. I was saying that was the last of the generation of the real men who just won't put it out there.
Yeah.
And after you do put it out there and the relief that you feel,
Sure.
But we're talking about relapse. So when you hit that relapse state, and you're putting this out there to people that you want to put it out there to, you don't know how to react to when they have that knee-jerk reaction of, oh my God, all that hell is coming back now. Oh no. And then you just withdraw. You don't want to talk about it anymore. And another problem is, depends on who you're talking to, because that whole real man generation, the Vietnam era guys, may have passed, but dudes still want to try to fix it.
Sure.
When sometimes it's just
guilty.
Shut the fuck up.
Guilty.
Christopher Ward, my hetero life mate, just chimed in. He said, "Do you think the hardest step is to surrender to yourself that you need help?" And the answer to that is, indubitably. I mean, I put poor Chris through the ringer, man, when I was in my addiction. He was always trying to figure out how to talk me back to reality, trying to figure out how to help.
Yeah.
But until you surrender to yourself, you admit it to yourself that you're fucking hopeless, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Then nobody can talk you down.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that you do surrender to yourself, because then I feel like then you start doing it. You start getting the help you need for yourself, as opposed to doing it for someone else. You know, and I think, and you know what? Here's the thing. I think ultimately, whatever gets you back in the room, awesome. You know, whatever gets you back on the right path.
Yeah, whatever your motivation is. Yeah.
Girlfriend, husband, house, dream, awesome. You know, but you know, I think ultimately, you have to get to a place where you want to do it for yourself.
Well, and you know that's true, but for me, it took a bit of a different face because
Sure.
I did do it for myself,
Mhm.
but I also did it for Chris. I did it for my dad and my mom, and to try to set an example for my sister who was struggling with her own issues, and so it's to the point where sometimes you might not think you're necessarily worth doing it just for yourself.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So many people who are worth doing it for, in conjunction with yourself.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I initially did it for this young lady I was dating. You know, the only thing is then when I was sober and then having conversations with that lady, I was also throwing like glasses at the wall because I was just so angry.
Right, still trying to get that rewiring job down.
Yeah, that became a problem. But yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, there is, people do it and surrender, so to speak, for the sake of others. But yeah, that surrender, man, that's a tough thing, man, to say I don't have any power over this.
And it's really hard when you figure out, because people figure out, I think, that they're powerless over it much longer before they finally actually say it. But then you got to sit back and say, okay, well, I'm just hurting myself, right? I'm not hurting anybody else. Like, I'm not stealing money. But you're not, because the people who actually love you and actually want to see you stick around, they're watching you die.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to the original knee-jerk reaction. If you do relapse, you try to open up to people, and they're just like, oh, shit, no.
Yeah. And that's not a good attitude, man.
But I'm guilty of that myself. My sister is scaring the hell out of me right now because she's not going to meetings and all that.
Yeah.
And my demeanor, because she's getting combative and we're having our old problems that we used to have, my demeanor is already, oh fuck, here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of specifics and I think good tools that I've been taught to me, so to speak, is, if the person is in their addiction at the moment, step away. I feel, unless they're literally going to harm themselves, in the moment.
Right.
But if you get that phone call, it's two schools of thought. One thought is anything you say is not going to do any good because they're inebriated. They're mind altered.
Right.
Or you could stay there and try and talk to the person, and who knows what happens. But I'm kind of an advocate of the. Sometimes there's nothing I can really tell that person in the moment, if they are, inebriated or high or whatever. That's really gonna sink in. I don't know. What do you?
Well, actually, I have a question specifically for you from Chris again.
Yeah.
And he says, during the process, did you find yourself trying to stay productive as a distraction?
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Friday nights, it's interesting because it's been happening recently too. Friday nights would come, I would hit my meetings Monday through Friday, and then my danger, chaos happened on the weekends for me. So when Friday night would come, I would get this thing of I don't want to pick up, I want to fuck something up.
Right.
And you know, just to be bluntly honest, and you know, so either I would fellowship with guys, you know, have dinners, have conversations, or throw myself more into what I was doing, whether it's music or acting or running, you know, or something physical, you know. So yeah, throwing myself into activities became really important, and I, you know, and again, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've heard also from others, like, you become better at the things, you know, because you're there, you're present, focused,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. So, but yeah,
Well, and that's also a part of everyday life. Is your brain is designed to absorb, process, and learn new information. When you're fucked up all the time, like me, you said you got hammered on the weekends. I got hammered because it's 11 a.m. All right, time to get down on it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when you're fucked up, you're not really absorbing and processing, so you're definitely not learning.
Yeah. Well, it was progressive too for me, right?
Sure.
By that last 2-3 months, you know, it was then becoming Monday, Wednesday, maybe
Right.
Thursday, you know, and it's amazing how there's a little voice, right? The little voice that says, "Dude, this might be a problem," right?
See you later, Chris. Chris is checking out. He said bye.
And how immediately you could just, like, you know,
Yeah.
quiet and quell that voice, you know. But it's, you know, it's there. At some point, you have to kind of listen to it, you know, or it just slaps you right in the face somehow if you don't, you know.
Something else I noticed about people, excuse me, people falling back off is their own fear factor. The same thing that their family and friends experience, from their time during their your addiction, is you're also feeling those same fears, and maybe that's another reason that people don't necessarily want to open up when they do
Yeah.
fall off.
Well, I think people feel, and again, I've been going through this. I think people feel like they disappointed people that were, you know, rooting on them. And the irony is that I feel like people will be more disappointed if you don't acknowledge what happened. You know?
Yeah, they'll be more disappointed, but of course
Yeah.
they are still going to be disappointed as a knee jerk. Oh God, you relapsed.
Yeah.
That disappointment is definitely in the reaction.
Yeah. Well, I think addicts understand. I like to think that addicts understand. You know what I mean? You realize it's, you know, we know the power of this thing. Sometimes our loved ones, unfortunately, don't. You know,
Well,
my
they never do. All they
Yeah.
really know is pain. Is the pain
Sure.
that they watched you go through, that you caused them. They don't. That's why I tell family and friends, you guys need to go to Al-Anon. You need to talk to other people who have experienced this, so you can learn instead of just process your pain in your own way and come up with
Yeah.
the wrong conclusions and just fuck them up even more.
Yeah, well, it's tricky, and I'll share this with you. You know, for a bit, my partner and I, you know, we would get into discussions or arguments and stuff, and we would kind of hit it like a crossroads where nothing I can say
Right.
will help her understand. So that's the moment where I'd be like, "Oh, I could suggest you use Al-Anon." You know, we'll have the same argument maybe a month later or something. And that's what I would do. I would just suggest, you know, maybe Al-Anon. And Lord behold, she's finally going to Al-Anon. You know, and it's one of those things where, it's all you can do is just suggest it. You know, you don't understand how our brains work. You know what I mean, or whatever, or why this obsessive compulsive thing. You know, Al-Anon is probably the best, you know, solution for that. But,
The scariest part about somebody who does relapse is their brain can't process it. It's been 2 years since I've done heroin, so I'm just gonna do as much heroin as I used to do 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit it on the head, right? Because you build up a tolerance. I mean, you build up, I'm sorry, repeat that. Your tolerance has gone down because of the accumulated sobriety you now have, right? So now it takes you, one hit, one bump maybe, or
Right.
just one, drink to get you there. And
That's not what your brain is telling you. More, 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 more.
yeah, exactly. And I remember I never used to understand why people who, I would hear celebrities or something who got sober and then relapsed and then immediately died.
Yeah.
Right? I never understood that. And once I got sober, I completely understood that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was convinced that Charlie Sheen was going to go out to a bag of dope. He was just going to relapse, try to party like he did when he was, running tiger's blood and be gone. But God bless him, man. He got right and he stayed right so far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I remember the Philip Seymour Hoffman
Mm-hmm.
and his situation in his case. Apparently he was sober for a very long time, and unfortunately, he met the demise he did. And I remember, and I was not sober at the time when that happened, and I remember, oddly enough, identifying with that, unbeknownst to me as to why I was identifying with that, but I was just identifying with that experience, and now it makes complete sense why it just kicks in so quickly. That's really scary. That is so scary.
Like with non-addicts, when they try to touch on that topic of oh, come on, they know when they're doing too much. It's a choice to do too much. It's almost like suicide. I say, remember when you were 10, that favorite roller coaster that you used to go on that you can't go on anymore because it's too damn scary now?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
but you still got on the fucking roller coaster, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great analogy. It's like your mind just becomes this one-track thing.
Yeah.
It becomes like this. You just kind of see through one, almost like tunnel vision. And I think that's what happens to an addict to some degree.
And it's unfortunate that when people do relapse, most guys' first reaction is, "I got to cut him off. I can't be around him anymore."
Yeah, and it goes, and I've been just, full frontal, not nudity, but full frontal honesty.
I told you it's clothing optional.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that, and it's this peculiar thing of like, the old timers, telling you, it's not going to do you any good, being around that person or something like that. But I've met other individuals that are like, no, that's when you really need to kind of connect with this person. Exactly at that moment.
This sounds shitty, but I don't really take a whole lot of what the old timers say to heart. Because, Ric Flair bumps on his side and bumps with his elbows. Because back in Ric Flair's day, that's how they did it. But they don't do it like that no more.
Yeah.
So I'm of the newer school philosophy of a drug is not a drug is not a drug. That to me is insane. I believe that these alcoholics and opiate addicts who are picking up the medical marijuana card, that's a godsend. That is saving lives. I mean, a drug is a drug is a drug says that if I have a headache, I can't take a Tylenol.
Yeah, yeah.
So those old schooler philosophies, I mean, it works for them.
Yeah.
That's great, but I feel like they are doing a lot of harm in the rooms when they're trying to preach what theirs is gospel and everybody else is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's, because think about it, right? I think addicts are just rebellious by nature.
Sure.
It's part of our life.
You think?
So yeah, it's our first default setting, I think, right out the womb. So that fire and brimstone stuff early on is I cringe. There have been meetings where I start cringing when I know there's someone counting days, and then there's that old timer with the fire and brimstone, and this is how you got to do it, and this how do it, that dude. I'm like, oh man, you're gonna drive them out for that kind of stuff. And look, that's not to say what they're saying is not valid. Obviously, they've accumulated time,
Right.
But I remember, right? If you're just counting days, or if you just relapsed, you're feeling like the lowest piece of shit in the world. So that language, it's not, sometimes it's going to do more damage than good,
You also talk to those old timers, the fire and brimstone motherfuckers, And everybody looks at them like, oh, what they're saying is gospel because of all this time. And I go, no, look at them. They're still white knuckling it. They're still really trying to make it by.
Yeah. Dude, I probably don't share this enough, but I always think to myself, like, okay, when people do how much time they got and all that, like, look, you can have 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Awesome. But the minute you start opening your mouth, that's when I really know what your sobriety is about. You know what I mean? Because, come on, how many times you'll hear someone have like 15, 20 years, and look, that's not me taking anyone's inventory, but I've observed this, they start opening their mouth, you're like, you're sober? You know what I mean? That's some crazy shit coming out of your mouth right now.
And, as far as taking anybody else's inventory goes, that brings up, like, okay, I got my 3 years in. And this is a very, very unpopular opinion around the circles. But a lot of these people are so hard on themselves when they relapse because, we lose our clean time. But I say, like myself, if something happened and I fell off and I did some coke one night, and the next day I went, oh shit, grab back a hold of it, maybe go to an IOP or just start hitting meetings again, start talking to people again, I don't consider that a wipe of my clean time. Now, if I go off the wagon for like a week, a month, then yeah, okay. Obviously, I should in my head restart it, and not for everybody else's benefit, for the group to agree with me. It's for me. I would have to restart it for me. But if somebody falls off it and crushes a 24-pack of beer, wakes up the next day, feels sick, throwing up, hungover, and grab right back a hold of where they're supposed to be and get back on track, I don't believe that should wipe your clean time.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you still put in a lot of work for a lot of time. And that's one of the reasons I think they're punishing you. Oh, 3 years down the drain, kiss that goodbye. Well, why? Why do you have to kiss that goodbye? Because I'll tell you, Jake had that very same attitude.
Yeah.
That, if somebody, why do we fall down?
That's interesting. So you're saying, so pretty much if you do pick up, but obviously the next day you kind of get back on track, that shouldn't dismiss the time. Yeah. But if you stay on the track, then
because usually if you're on that track for a week, you're not gonna shake your head and be like, oh, let me get back to work. Somebody's gonna pull you back in.
Yeah.
And then okay, start over. You don't necessarily have to start your steps over and all that bullshit. You already know where you're supposed to be. So just get back to there and maybe then restart your clean time. But for me, now.
Yeah, it's interesting because it makes me think of like batting averages, right? If you're hitting like 350 or something, and let's just say you have two bad games, and your average goes down to like 300. Again, I'm not like a big baseball aficionado, but let's just say that next game, right? You hit, you get 2 singles, a home run, and and it brings up your average. That's kind of what it makes me think of.
Right.
If you're adamantly still working on it, right, and you're aware of what you did, and you shouldn't dismiss the work that's come prior to. Or the sobriety time. Yeah.
If you have a baby that just started running for 2 weeks and they fall down once, you don't be like, well, fuck you. You're starting over your walking time. You don't get to run anymore. Now go let the kid run. The kid got up, run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And one of the things I wanted to kind of go back to, right, this idea of complacency. We were talking about this before we got on there. That I always hear. Especially when I'm hearing qualifications when people relapse, they come in feeling like, like I said, the biggest piece of crap in the world,
right.
Spiritually, just shot, and then, they get the job, and then they get the girlfriend, boyfriend, they get the house, they get the kids, and that C word kind of kicks in, right? And then that's usually when I'll hear, and then I pick up again. And
it's weird, too, because it's like how much you have to lose.
Yeah.
But you're complacent. No, I got this.
Yeah. that's the thing that's really interesting to me. You know, and I don't want to overgeneralize and say that's everyone's trajectory, but a lot of times I always hear, you know, I got that great job, I got that great partner, you know, I got the cat, the dog, the picket fence, the car, you know.
White and red roses, damn it.
Yeah, and then they relapse, you know, and it's so and it happens in a nanosecond. They're at a party, you know, and someone just offers them and they just pick it up, and that's crazy.
Yep.
Like how like they say how subtle, how quickly it happens, you know, and why is that?
Do I think?
Yeah.
Jesus, relapse starts so far before you actually pick up.
Yes.
So, like, if you're in that position, you're at that party, and somebody offers you that drink at that party, you went to that party knowing somebody was going to offer you a drink and knowing you were going to take it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think also, and I've been guilty of this, right? My well-being, my happiness, my, you know, all that stuff that I could make those things dependent on my happiness. You know, how stable the job is, right? How stable the relationship is. You know, all those things become, it's where I find my happiness.
Right.
You know, and that's tough because it's very human. You know, if you have a good relationship, if you have a good job, those things are conducive to happiness. But I'm definitely of the school that you can't place all your well-being and your happiness on those things.
Sure.
You know, they can be contingent on those things because those things waver up and down. You know, that you might lose that job. You know, you might lose that thing. You know, but, and this is just speaking for myself, but if you have a connection to something that's a little more powerful than you, you know, or that's not you, as long as it's not you, you know, could be a group of junks, could be whatever it is. For me, that becomes really important, and I know that's really difficult for a lot of people. You know, coming in.
Well, a lot of people also tend to romanticize their addiction when they're already mentally in relapse mode. They start remembering all the great parts about getting high and drunk and everything else that went along with it. They forget the nightmare stuff because they're in that complacent mode.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're reminded of the nightmare the first day that they pick back up.
Yeah.
Oh, God, there's that feeling. There's that panicky. There's that itchy. There's all that went into the nightmare before that they forget about until it's too late. But hopefully that fear that is sparked back up in their brain is what brings them back off.
That inborn forgetter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to kind of, as they say, like play the tape, you know, or have people that can play the tape for you. You know?
And plenty of people will. But the problem with having people play your tape back is they're remembering it through their eyes.
Yeah.
And anybody who's actually using is like, fuck you, you don't know what you're talking about. That didn't happen like that. Brr, and they're gone.
Yeah, there might be some embellishments.
Yeah. But the thing about relapses, early into relapses, it's still easy to climb back out. Because you still have that knowledge and that clean time and that motivation. And I think that's how it would be for me. If I started doing it again, that fear would set back in of, holy shit, I might be out of drug court now, but I go back in front of Judge Rangos and she's throwing that 20 years at me. That's just going to happen. And even take that away. Do I want to miss the last years of my mother's life? Do I want to lose my best friends because they can't go down that road again?
Yeah, so I think keeping in the forefront of your mind the things that you would lose, so to speak. You know,
I keep the fear of cocaine right there all the time. It scares me.
Yeah,
because I know how much I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, I just try to keep in mind the good things that are happening in my life. Yeah. Well, but not only that, but to know that those things happened because of my sobriety.
And they can be
Those
very
are
fleeting.
results of my sobriety,
Yep.
and that's the big distinction for me, you know.
And that's a big rug to have pulled out from under you.
Yeah, yeah,
And a hard fall.
yeah.
So I guess to anybody who's watching right now who is in the throes of a relapse, you got out before and you were using it for a lot longer than you are now. So getting out this time, if it's any consolation, won't be as hard. Because when you first go into recovery, you don't know the steps, you don't know what it's about, you don't know what it has to offer.
I wonder if it's the old adage, if you did it once, you can do it again.
Sure.
You know, if you came in, and you have some sober time, then you'll be able to do it again.
And you know that all those nasty feelings are going to pass, and acceptance. And if I tend to think like if I did fall off and I got right back on track the next day, all the people in my life would just be cheerleaders. But
Yeah.
I didn't put them through as much hell as I've heard some people putting others through.
Yeah.
But, and if you do it a second time, I mean, what kind of a badass are you?
Yeah. Well, it's like, right, that strength that you need to get back up.
Absolutely.
That's a strength that should not be, that should not be overlooked.
And the thing about street drugs nowadays is these scumbags are putting fentanyl in everything.
Yeah.
People are overdosing on cocaine, but it's not cocaine; it's fentanyl they're overdosing on. They're putting it in weed.
That's insane.
That's people trying to kill people. But you can say, "Oh, well, they're dirtbags, they're pieces of shit," and that's true. But don't be the one who dies.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, and right, what I like to think, what has most of this conversation been about? Why do we do it? And it's the talking about the things that are going on in your life, and being honest about those things. Because I think ultimately, again, that's what definitely keeps me on track. And I'm not saying I have perfect days where I'm always like calling my sponsor up for everything that happens. You know what I mean?
Who does?
Yeah. But when I know something's weighing on me, and this brain has just said, I'm done. I don't know what else to do about this thing. That's when, I need to pick up the phone and talk to someone else,
And that's how we handled everything back in the day. Is if stress hits you, if there's pressure or trouble, I know what'll make it go away right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even got to wait for results.
Yeah, and it goes kind of back to, I think, what we talked about, the first time I was on. We don't want to. We don't want to feel. We don't want to think. We don't want to feel. And I don't have the coping skills to deal with whatever this challenge is. So I know I used to. So why not? Why the fuck not? And I think that's probably part of what happens when people relapse as well. But the one that always scares me is that very quick, subtle one. And you just, but like you said, that relapse has been or planned out, blueprinted even before, someone picks up.
And that's I really appreciate these Facebook groups because I'm fortunate in Pittsburgh, where there's this place called the Anala Club, where they literally have a meeting every hour, 24 hours a day. Even if there's just two people sitting in there. But I know there's lots of places where they might only have 2 meetings a week in the entire town. So they have somewhere to turn to, and it's good for the ones who are. But just reading these stories of these people with genuine pain and how much they hate themselves, and I really wanted to touch base on that and just say you can't hate yourself. You can't spend so much time loving yourself and working on yourself to legitimately hate yourself after one fuck up. Because we all fuck up in every aspect of life every day.
Yeah.
I dug a trench today for 2 goddamn hours and realized it was in the wrong spot. Man, I was like, wait a minute. There's supposed to be a pipe by now. What the hell is going on? So I went to
Jimmy
Jordan,
Hoffa
filled it all in, and said, I'm done. I'll do this again tomorrow.
And then you found Jimmy Hoffa.
And then what?
And then you found Jimmy Hoffa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
Get ready to laugh.
But to go back to what you were saying, I think it's that self-love, right? What is it, that metaphor? Beat yourself with a feather or something. I think it's important for us to build reference points of when we're proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we did something that we are proud of, and remember those moments, right? Because when we're feeling like shit, those are the moments that we need to kind of go back to.
That's pretty brilliant. That's good.
Well, it's always difficult for me to acknowledge, like, hey, I did a good job for this. Hey, you know what I mean? And the proverbial pat myself in the back.
Sure.
Either I am the fucking biggest genius in the fucking room, or I'm this small.
Right.
There's
It's all or nothing, baby.
Yeah, and the challenge has always been to like find that middle ground where it's not like your shit don't stink, but hey, you are worth something. You bring something to the table, and remembering those moments. When we are feeling like pieces of shit. Whatever those moments are.
So that happens even without relapse. You can't let those feelings drag you back to that point.
Yeah.
My God, I can't believe it's been an hour already. Looks like we are like out of time, but thanks for coming on again. I think we hit on some good stuff. I hope people could take something for it. Thanks to my hetero life mate Chris Casanova for chiming in with some good questions.
Thank you, Chris.
And I know I say it every time, and it sounds cliche, but if nobody has told you today, I love you. You are worth all the good things that sobriety has to offer, and there is always somebody who wants to help. Because remember, when they're helping you, they're helping themselves, so take the help. Let the ego at the fucking door, man. Jeez, because ego causes wars.
Yeah.
There are nations who have vanished off the planet throughout history because of ego. I think my dick's bigger. Well, my gun's bigger. Oh.
That is an amazing metaphor, and I completely wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. The travesties of humanity have been caused by oversized egos.
That's right. So that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we have our old buddy Duke the Dumpster Drosy coming back on. And we're going to discuss the topic of relapse again with him through the point of view of a recovering addict, but also somebody who works in the drug legal system.
Awesome.
And hopefully I can find some kind of a clinical worker to come on after that. So
yeah.
That's going to do it for this week. Smells Like Hope. Howard Claudio, anything you want to plug real quick?
If you are in the New York City area, my band's finally up and going, and we're going to have a show July 29th at Arlene's Grocery at 8 p.m. I believe. So
there you go.
Feel free to hit me up as well.
And, of course, you're still working on Abby Klein. What is it, WWAB?
Yeah, WWAB. Podcast network. We have a 64-person tournament going on. That's just craziness and amazingness, and Abby Klein works his ass off.
He really does. I mean, geez, that guy must have a surgical attachment for his computer.
Yeah.
Just always click.
Yeah, he's a passionate guy, and there's a lot of amazing people right now attached to that tournament. So I'm grateful to be on it. And yeah, if you want to catch that stuff out, always go to Abby Klein's Facebook page, and you'll see all that content there. So.
All right. Good shit. So on that note, Howard, thanks a lot. Thank you, Christopher Casanova, my dude. And thanks to everybody for listening. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. People will help you. So we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good, but